Fabrications complicate the world in a web. Hello to all my lovely goddesses watching today. You're watching a new episode of Kylie Retrospectives, a series in which we delve into the discography of pop goddess Kylie Minogue in the lead up to her new album, Disco, which comes out on the 6th of November at the time of recording. I am ElliXia Valentine, Malvin's answer to Molly King. This week we are taking it back to ancient Greece, aka 2010, to discuss Kylie's 11th studio album, Aphrodite. Aphrodite was released in the UK on the 5th of July 2010 and it went straight to number 1 in the UK albums chart. This made Kylie the first female artist to have a number 1 album in the last 4 decades. Aphrodite was home to the singles All the Lovers, Get Out of My Way, Better Than Today, and Put Your Hands Up in brackets if you feel love. Today's look is inspired by the album's general vibe as always. I'm going for Greek goddess, got this lovely blue velvet gown. I'm feeling opulent. Am I? Yes, I'm channeling Miss Fierce and Mighty Aphrodite herself. So how can I sum Aphrodite up in one word? Perfection. That's it, that's the end of the video. See you next week. Of course, I'm just kidding. I had you going there, didn't I? Yeah. My acting degree not going to waste there, ladies and gentlemen. No need to retrain here. Yeah, spoiler alert, Aphrodite is my favourite Kylie album and my favourite album of all time. I said it before, this is the album that really introduced me to Kylie properly. Before this time, I only really knew her big hit singles from the 2000s. I had Ultimate Kylie, but I hadn't really listened to it beyond the songs that I knew. But Aphrodite was the album that changed everything. I wasn't even a huge Kylie fan at this point, but I was really excited to hear it. I listened to it and straight away I was immediately like transfixed into this euphoric album. It's 43 minutes of joy from start to finish, and I never looked back. Except I did look back because of course it's prompted me to buy all her other albums as well. I remember listening to Ultimate Kylie and sort of feeling a bit like, wow, where the hell have these songs been all my life? Why haven't I paid much attention to it before? And that whole summer, I remember, I just spent that whole summer listening to Kylie on a loop. And then from that point onwards, I began to slowly get her albums one by one when I could afford them. So let's pay our respects to the goddess of love and dive deep into the album's track listing. Starting with lead single, All the Lovers. Now, Aphrodite is my favourite album of all time. So, guess what my favourite song is of all time? I'll give you a minute. That's right, it's All the Lovers. To begin with, I was a little bit underwhelmed because the song starts off quite minimal and then it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, which is essentially my favourite kind of song. And when it got to the instrumental bit after the middle 8, where it just is this like explosion of happiness and euphoria, I remember just being like, wow. And it didn't take very long for All the Lovers to grow on me. That moment in that song always makes me smile. Whenever she does it on tour and there's like confetti, I just love it. Yeah, All the Lovers is just absolute perfection. The lyrics are very minimal. The verses are quite minimal, but as the song builds up and then it is just this ultimate climax that just pays off perfectly. And the video as well, I really love the video. I love how it features people of all different races and genders kissing each other in this human pyramid, in this big statement of love. An 18-year-old me who had been out of the closet for about a year at this point really loved seeing that, because it was probably one of the first times I'd seen that kind of representation of gay love on TV. Like, All the Lovers will forever be my pride anthem. I think if I ever get married, if a man is ever lucky enough to put a ring on this finger, I think All the Lovers might be our first dance song. And when I say that to people, they're like, well, what if you marry somebody who doesn't like Kylie? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna marry them. Second single was Get Out of My Way, which was released in September of 2010. It reached number 12 on the UK singles chart, and the fact that Get Out of My Way wasn't a number 1 in 64 different countries for 12 weeks is a tragedy the human race will never, ever be able to make up for. Get Out of My Way is such a banger. Like, I feel really sassy and fired up when I listen to it. It's Kylie telling her man that he's boring. And she's like, well, I'm gonna go and dance. You can sit there and do what you want. I'm gonna go and dance. I'm gonna go and dance with other guys. And I'm not gonna get with them, but I'm gonna make you think I am. The video is iconic. It's got some gorgeous outfits, gorgeous choreography. And even though Get Out of My Way wasn't a huge chart success, I still love that she does it on tour and it's still a huge fan favourite. Get Out of My Way is also a perfect song to listen to when you're walking down the street in a hurry and there's loads of slow people in front of you. I like to think if I was ever on a season of RuPaul's Drag Race, Get Out of My Way would be the lip sync song to save me from elimination if I was in the bottom two. Don't tell World of Wonder and RuPaul that. Because if I ever do appear on that show, and then this video surfaces, people are going to think it's rigged. So don't tell them I said that, please. I'm not going on Drag Race anytime soon, so I don't think that's something we're going to have to worry about. Moving on to single number 3, we have Better Than Today, which was written by Scottish singer-songwriter Narina Pallo. Better Than Today is a nice, fun, mid-tempo, quite quirky sounding, sort of seize the day moment. It's got some very cute lyrics about, you know, taking a chance and letting a bit loose. It's got a good lyric, what's the point in living if you don't take a chance? And then what's the point in living if you don't want to dance? And I think that probably sums me up quite well. And there's a good line as well about very clever people know we all need a chance to stop our clever busyness and let go and dance. And I think that's so true. I know that there are obligations in life such as paying bills, going to work and all that kind of stuff. But every now and then I think we do need to let go of the seriousness and, you know, nurture that inner child that we all have, and I think Better Than Today sums it up really well. Unfortunately, Better Than Today, in my eyes, wasn't the best single choice. So Better Than Today was released in December of 2010, and it was not a huge success. It reached number 32 on the singles chart, mainly propelled by a performance that she did on the X Factor. The thing is, so Better Than Today was performed on the X Factor a whole month before its like proper full promotional release came out, so I don't really know what happened there. So it's a shame it didn't do that well. It wouldn't have been my choice for the third single, but I'm not Kylie's A&R person, so what can I say? And then we have the album's fourth single, Put Your Hands Up, in brackets, If You Feel Love. I actually forget that Put Your Hands Up was a single. It was kind of a last-minute release. It doesn't have a proper music video. It does have a lyric video, but not a proper music video. If I remember correctly, when Put Your Hands Up came out, I actually didn't realise it was a single until it appeared on iTunes that day. Flop fan, am I right? Yeah, it got a release and it didn't really chart that highly. I think it reached like 93 or something like that. But it was barely even promoted, so I guess the fact that it charted was probably a miracle in itself. Put Your Hands Up is a really good euphoric number again. It's obviously the kind of song that you know would go down well live. You know, she says, put your hands up, and of course, you obey Miss Minogue. A lyric I really like as well is, everybody knows how life can get so twisted, but I won't let it bring me down. There's no point in ever trying to resist it, just work it out. And again, it's Kylie coming through with a great life advice. Shit happens, sometimes you just have to roll with the punches, and you'll get through it. So let's continue on with the rest of the album track. So we have track 4, which is Closer. Just an FYI, pretty much every song on the album is in the vein of dance pop. Just to save me saying that for every single song. Closer is very atmospheric, I would say. I don't want to say it's dark sounding, because it's not, but there's something of an otherworldly element to it. It's like you might be a tiny bit scared, but you have no reason to be. And Closer's like, come on, it'll be fine. And I can't talk about Closer without talking about the wonderful performance of it on the Aphrodite tour. So for Closer, she was on this dancer with huge angel wings, and they fly across the crowd to that bit of the stage that's in the middle. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I could not do that. I'd be screaming the whole time. I wouldn't be able to sing. I'd have to be lip syncing. And there's a bit as well where she's got her microphone and she sort of does that to the crowd. And I'm like, what if you drop it? What would happen? Then up next we have Everything Is Beautiful, which is the closest thing this album has to a ballad. Even though it's not really a ballad, but it's as close as this album's gonna get. This song sort of talks about letting yourself enjoy yourself, really, even if it's not real. It's kind of like using the power of your imagination to create a world that you love. Even if it isn't real, you're still in a state of bliss. Everything is beautiful. I mean, it could be a song about getting high or taking hallucinogenics. But it's a really lovely, lush track with some gorgeous piano moments in it. And I really loved the Aphrodite performance of it as well. Her dancers have these really elaborate sort of fashion show, drag queeny, almost like Christmas decorations, kind of. And they're walking along the stage, just being very elegant. There's not really much choreography, it is all just very elegant. And it's so nice. And it has an extended intro, the tour version as well, which is just really, really lovely. Everything is beautiful, and that includes the song. Then at track 6, we have the album's title track, Aphrodite. Now ladies, when I say banger, I mean that with a capital B. Aphrodite absolutely punches you in the face with how brilliant it is. As soon as the song starts, it's got like that marching military drums sound, and then it just explodes into this epic moment of, yes, I am Aphrodite, I am that bitch. It is a song fit for a goddess. And by this point in her career, you know, over 20 years into her career, she's earned the right to be bragging a little bit. Honestly, Aphrodite is such an epic song. I suggest if you live somewhere that has an area that has a peak of some kind, like either a mountain or a hill or something like that, I suggest going for a walk, climb to the top of it, and then listen to Aphrodite whilst the wind is blowing through your hair and you're just like this. Honestly, I've listened to Aphrodite on walks up the Malvern Hills, and when I've got to the top, and like I said, you got the wind blowing through your hair and you got that song playing, you feel like you're an absolute badass goddess and no one is going to take you down. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. Give it a try, it is so amazing. And of course, Aphrodite was the opener on the tour. And I watched the tour the other night, just, you know, as I have been with these albums to, you know, really contextualize them. And I was like, yeah, yeah, when the song started, because it was just one of those moments, you know. Then we calm things down with Illusion, track 7. Illusion is very luscious. There's some gorgeous harmonies. It feels very, you know, demure and mysterious. She's singing about somebody who she can't believe is real, and she doesn't trust him because she's like, no, how can this be true? It's very, very dreamy. It feels very much like you're floating when you listen to it. And again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, the tour version, just out of this world. It has this sort of Middle Eastern vibe to it. It starts off with an extended intro, which is very sort of brooding and atmospheric. And then, after the middle 8, came this amazing dance break that Kylie and her dancers were doing, in heels, might I add, as well. And it goes from this sort of dance break, then back into the main version of the song. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was just like, yes, oh my god, perfection. Then we had the song Too Much, which was a song produced by Calvin Harris. Too Much is quite a frantic dance track. It's very clubby, it's very sort of thumping, like, you know. It's not my favourite track on the album, but it would have made for a good single release, I think. Because the sound of Too Much is actually quite similar to the sound that was very popular in 2011-12, when Calvin Harris's profile was really at an all-time high. And loads of pop artists were doing very similar sounding songs. Too Much was ahead of its time. The only song on this album to not be performed on the tour, actually, but it was done on the Anti-Tour in 2012. So every track on this album has been done on tour in some capacity. Then we have the track Cupid Boy, which is one of my favourite tracks on this album for sure. There's some ever so slightly elements of rock sprinkled in the mix. Not a huge amount mind, but you know, little dashing of it here and there. It's got a wonderful pre-chorus moment that I really, really like. And I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of a bit like a breakdown. It's very electronic. It's a little bit dirty, but in a good way. Cupid Boy would have definitely made a good single choice, I think. It definitely makes me want to get down and a little bit. And of course the performance on tour, also very good as well. She came out in this huge black gown and it was incredible. Then we have the album's penultimate track, Looking for an Angel, which Has some lovely strings in it. Very celestial, very fitting for its title. It's sort of a bit similar to the kind of songs that Madonna did on Ray of Light, you know, the more up-tempo Ray of Light numbers, but updated for 2010. It's very euphoric, very heavenly. You know, everything you expect a song called Looking for an Angel to be. And then we have the album's closer, which is Can't Beat the Feeling. Can't Beat the Feeling is a perfect closer. It ends the album on an absolute high. It feels very much to me like a song that you'd hear in the soundtrack of a TV show in a series finale, where the series finale has a happy ending. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a wedding or something, and everyone's having a good time. It's wonderfully done. It's very, again, it's very euphoric. I think the key word for Aphrodite really is euphoric. There's just so much to enjoy from start to finish, and Can't Beat the Feeling is the perfect way to cap that off. Then, as is the standard with our Kylie albums, we have a few bonus tracks as well. iTunes had a deluxe track called Mighty Rivers, produced by the wonderful Xenomania, who are responsible for some of the biggest pop hits of the 2000s. Mighty Rivers is very in keeping with the rest of the tone of the album. It feels a little bit more calm, I would say. What's nice about Mighty Rivers actually is that it sounds instantly familiar. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, I know I've heard this song before. Maybe it uses a sample, I just don't know. But it sounds really, really lovely. We also have Japanese-only bonus track, Heartstrings, which was also produced by Xenomania as well. It's such a tragedy that Heartstrings isn't available on any UK streaming services at all. It's been 10 years, and I'm still waiting for Heartstrings to be added to a digital platform in the UK. Kylie, please. Heartstrings is really, really lovely. It very much belongs with the rest of the album as well. It's really, really nice. We also have Go Hard or Go Home, which was a B-side to All the Lovers, as well as an Amazon-only bonus track. Go Hard or Go Home is like a little sister, I would say, to Get Out of My Way. I could see why it wasn't included on the album, really, because it's not as good as the rest of the tracks. She's singing about a guy who she's interested in, but she's like, you gotta come to me. And you gotta go hard or go home. Maybe it's a prequel to Get Out of My Way. This is the same guy from Get Out of My Way, but before they were together. And lastly, we have the track Silence, which is not about those horrible characters in Doctor Who. Silence was a B-side to Put Your Hands Up If You Feel Love. Got some nice sort of electric piano moments in Silence. It's a nice track. Again, I don't think it's as strong as what did make the album, so it's not a crime that it wasn't left off, but it's still a really enjoyable song. We also have the song Higher, which was done with Tyro Cruz. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Higher was written by Tyro Cruz for Aphrodite, but it didn't make the cut, and then he did his own version of it on his album, and then Kylie joined on his version for the single release. Higher is okay. I can see why it wasn't on the album. It's enjoyable. I think it really benefits from having a second vocalist on it as well, because I've heard Tyro's solo version and it kind of just feels a bit limp. And I feel like if it was just Kylie on her own, it would probably also feel the same. I think it benefits from having that kind of back and forth with two different voices. And on a rather sad note, Higher is actually Kylie's most recent top 10 single. She hasn't had one since. But that actually leads me on quite nicely to my next point. I feel that Aphrodite was the start of Kylie sort of maturing as an artist and becoming one of those artists where it's less about the singles and more so about the albums. And I think with this transition, there were a few sort of teething problems which we will get into with next week's album. But I think Aphrodite sort of marked the beginning of Kylie becoming a bit more Radio 2 and a bit less Radio 1. Because of course, when Aphrodite was released 10 years ago, this was when Radio 1 really did start to not really include artists over the age of 30 anymore. At least female artists anyway. Because hey, who doesn't love a bit of industry misogyny? I've spoken about it just a bit in this video already, but I have to talk about the Aphrodite tour. So amazing. Aphrodite is my favourite Kylie album, All the Lovers is my favourite Kylie song, Aphrodite is my favourite Kylie tour. The whole thing was just so consistent from start to finish. Some wonderful upgrades of her previous material as well. Pretty much every classic Kylie song that's performed on this tour gets some kind of new fresh coat of paint for this tour, and it just works so well. The Greek goddess theme is really apparent throughout the whole show. And of course, the tour has a special place in my heart, as it was the very first time that I saw Kylie live. I went to see her in Manchester with my mother and her friend, and it was one of the best nights ever. I loved it so much. I loved every minute of the Aphrodite tour. What an introduction as well to the live force that is Kylie Minogue. So like I said, to sum up, Aphrodite is, in my eyes at the very least, an absolute solid 10 out of 10.
10.
It really does feel to me like Aphrodite is Kylie doing what she does best. It's Kylie's classic dance pop, disco pop sound, updated to 2010, and in my eyes, to these ears, it hasn't aged. Maybe I'm biased, I don't know, but I feel like Aphrodite still sounds as fresh now as it did back then. It's honestly Kylie at her peak, I think. If you want to listen to a Kylie album which is Kylie at her absolute element, then Aphrodite is the one for you. Aphrodite is an album I've carried around with me for the whole 10 years since its release. I listened to it at loads of really sort of pivotal moments in my life as well. I listened to it when I was getting ready for graduation. I've listened to it when I've been getting ready for friends' weddings. I like to have Aphrodite as that soundtrack to be there. And just a heads up, if I do ever get married, the whole album will probably be factored in some way or another. I'm really thankful for Aphrodite for being the album that began a love affair with Kylie's music that has been going for 10 years strong now, and I don't see it dwindling anytime soon. I'm not being dramatic when I say Aphrodite is an album that changed my life, basically. It really is 43 minutes and 12 tracks of euphoria from start to finish. Absolute Kylie pop perfection. Thank you very much. So yeah, to sum it up, I think Aphrodite's alright, yeah. Yeah, it's alright. So thank you very much for joining me in celebrating my favourite album of all time. I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. And don't forget to join me next week when we get a little bit steamy and a little bit sexy with 2014's Kiss Me Once. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, give me money, you know, the usual. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Stay safe, stay good, and I've been ElliXia Valentine. Thank you very much. Please book me. Mwah.
10.